Mary, what's the deal with me being stuck solo at my sister's wedding? I found myself isolated, and when I inquired about it to her mother-in-law, she smirked before replying. Oh, was that the case? Well, it's all right. A middle school graduate is hardly a feather in the family cap. Mary always had a knack for belittling me, and as others began to take notice, I felt even more out of place, drowning in embarrassment. What do you even know about Eddie? And you don't know my brother, I muttered, feeling utterly defeated. Then my sister Michelle appeared, and the dynamic shifted. My name's Eddie Smith. I turned 42 this year. I began unraveling the story of our upbringing. Ever since our parents passed away in a car accident when we were kids, Michelle and I, just a year apart, were raised by our grandparents. Though we felt vulnerable without our grandparents filled our lives with love, ensuring we never felt alone. However, as our grandparents grew older, I felt the weight of responsibility. I started working right after middle school, despite Michelle's encouragement to pursue higher education. Are you sure you don't want to go to high school? You don't have to bear this burden alone, she urged, her concern palpable. But I couldn't shake the need to support our family, especially Michelle, whose dream of becoming a doctor fueled my determination. I don't have a dream like you, Michelle. Right now, my dream is to contribute to the family as soon as possible, I explained, knowing she felt guilty about my sacrifice. Yet, she understood once I shared my true feelings. Michelle's hard work paid off, and she secured a spot in college, eventually becoming a doctor. With our grandparents gone by the time she earned her medical license, we leaned on each other for support. Hey, Eddie, I'm free this weekend. How about we grab a bite? Michelle suggested, extending an olive branch of camaraderie. That sounds perfect. I'm free too. Let's go for drinks, I replied, grateful for the bond we shared. Michelle and I had a close relationship, often spending our free time together, even as I juggled various temporary jobs to make ends meet. Lately, there's been someone causing you trouble, Mary, Michelle's mother-in-law. To my surprise and delight, she recently got engaged, making her my relative by marriage. Initially, based on what Michelle had told me about Mary being a gentle and modest woman, I was hopeful. Coming from a family without parents, I looked forward to our relatives coming together. However, my naive optimism was shattered at our first encounter. Eddie, you don't look as impressive as Michelle. It's disappointing that you're nothing like what I imagined being related to you would be, Mary remarked as soon as Michelle left the table. Her demeanor completely changed, and even Michelle's fiancé, Tom, remained silent as Mary continued her tirade. You know, Michelle graduated from medical school and works at the forefront as a doctor. Despite being a woman, she carries herself with such confidence. But I never heard about having such a loser brother. Mary continued, disregarding any attempt from Tom to intervene. When Mary came to announce the engagement, she was all smiles in front of Michelle. But as soon as Michelle left the room, her tone shifted, and she began berating me. I was shocked into silence by her sudden change. She looked down on me with disdain, mocking my middle school education and my job. She made it clear that having someone with my educational background as a relative was a problem for her. Despite her husband being a doctor and her working in medical administration, Mary constantly imposed unreasonable demands on me. She even went as far as suggesting that I cut ties with Michelle to avoid embarrassment for her family. I never expected to be insulted like this, especially since Michelle had expressed excitement about our meeting. Feeling embarrassed and hurt by Mary's words, I couldn't help but wonder how things got so messed up. I felt trapped, knowing that Michelle and I were each other's only blood relatives and that cutting ties wasn't an option. Throughout our conversation, Mary continued to make snide remarks, leaving me feeling even more isolated and disheartened. Since we don't live together or see each other often, I've managed to endure Mary's persistent attempts to convince me to cut ties with Michelle. Maintaining a good relationship with Michelle is paramount to me, as she's the only family I have left. Ideally, I'd like to get along with Mary too, but it seems she can't accept me due to my lower level of education. Why do I have to deal with someone with such a low education like you? Mary's words continued to sting. Being judged solely on my educational background makes my blood boil. Despite this, I didn't object to Michelle and Tom's marriage. Mary's persistence in trying to separate us has only intensified since their wedding date was set. Reluctantly, I prepared for the wedding, knowing I couldn't miss such a significant family event despite my apprehensions. Upon arrival at the venue, I was shocked to find myself seated alone at the back, contrary to what Michelle had assured me. Mary's presence only added to my discomfort, her judgmental gaze making me feel even more out of place. Eddie, you're looking quite shabby today. Couldn't you even prepare proper attire for a wedding? Mary's tone was as cutting as ever as she berated me for my appearance. Asking her about my isolated seating only elicited a smirk from her, followed by her disparaging remarks about my education. The humiliation was unbearable, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of her scornful words. Despite my attempts to reason with her, Mary's insults only grew more heated, culminating in her insistence that I leave the wedding altogether. Her disdain for me was palpable, leaving me no choice but to endure her verbal onslaught in silence. Filled with the desire to escape, I made a silent vow to sever ties with Mary once and for all. However, before I could make my exit, Michelle approached me, unaware of the turmoil brewing within me. Before I could utter a word to Michelle, Mary interjected, dismissing me as a failure of a brother and suggesting that I leave. Michelle, however, defended me, citing how I had supported her journey to becoming a doctor. Despite her protests, Mary continued to belittle me, claiming that our family was now part of the upper class, unlike me. As the tension escalated, Peter, Michelle's fiancé, intervened, urging us to stop causing a scene. Mary, desperate to shift the blame onto me, attempted to convince Peter that I was at fault. But before she could succeed, Dr. Williams, the hospital director, approached me with gratitude for a past encounter. Mary couldn't contain her shock as Dr. Williams praised me and offered me a position at the hospital. Recalling how I had assisted him during a crisis on the street, Dr. Williams expressed his admiration for my proactive nature. His offer of employment was a turning point for me, as I had been struggling to find a stable job. Grateful for the opportunity, I accepted Dr. Williams' offer and embarked on a new chapter in my career. Despite facing challenges, I worked diligently and obtained certifications in medical administration and secretarial duties. Dr. Williams continued to support and guide me, ultimately changing my life for the better. He was the one who saved my life. My brother was indeed very grateful for your help. Michelle expressed her appreciation to Dr. Williams. To my surprise, Peter had met me a few times at meetings, being aware of the situation. However, Mary, who had always looked down on me, probably didn't know. Her shock was palpable upon hearing about my relationship with Dr. Williams. What the hell? A middle school graduate like him becoming an executive secretary at the headquarters? Impossible, Mary exclaimed in disbelief. She seemed unable to fathom that someone they had dismissed as a middle school graduate could hold such a prestigious position. In her eyes, my achievements seemed like deception, and she dismissed even my ability to speak German as mere showing off. The headquarters, a gathering place for the group's top talents, was a realm of the elite. Mary struggled to comprehend how someone like me could belong there. Until now, Mary had refrained from openly speaking ill of me in front of Michelle. But today, it seemed she couldn't contain her disdain any longer. Her insults were directed at me, regardless of who was present. Dr. Williams, however, swiftly addressed her remarks. So, are you saying that I'm lying? His question left Mary visibly shaken. He made it clear that he didn't judge people based on their educational background. Eddie, indeed, has been demonstrating his capabilities adequately at the hospital, Dr. Williams affirmed, his words warming my heart. I had always been somewhat conscious of my educational background, and Dr. Williams' recognition of my efforts meant a lot to me. However, Mary couldn't accept my achievements and dismissed them as underhanded tactics. She insisted that she could do her job better than me and accused me of deceiving everyone. But Dr. Williams pointed out that her reputation at the hospital wasn't exemplary, citing several resignations among the staff due to her behavior. Under Mary's continued uproar, Dr. Williams coldly retorted, questioning her integrity regarding the misuse of funds at the affiliated hospital. Mary was visibly shaken, showing signs of panic as Dr. Williams confronted her about the financial discrepancies. Peter denied any involvement in the misuse of funds, prompting Dr. Williams to announce a thorough investigation. Mary pleaded desperately, but her son Tom refused to cover for her any longer, expressing his desire to succeed as a doctor independently. Disappointed by Mary's actions, Dr. Williams emphasized the importance of cherishing those around them, declaring that someone who couldn't uphold such values had no place in his hospital. Mary, realizing the gravity of the situation, turned to me for help, but I had reached my limit. "I've never been considered family by you," I asserted, refusing to associate with someone who only found their worth by looking down on others. Michelle, standing behind me, nodded in agreement, signaling her support. The wedding proceeded without Mary, and at Dr. Williams' behest, she was dismissed from the company for embezzlement of funds. During her divorce proceedings, her affair with a male nurse was exposed, leading to her downfall and destitution. Michelle apologized to me and promised to cut ties with Mary, reaffirming our bond as family. Despite the challenges, I continue to work hard every day, valuing family and being grateful to those who support me, including Dr. Williams.